to welcome you to our first real edition of The Printer in the Suit with an actual guest. We're fortunate today to have Paul, and Kevin will tell you a little bit more about him in a minute. The purpose of The Printer in the Suit is really to try to bring both sides together. I, as a print owner and buyer of equipment over the years, many pieces. Kevin is a seller working on the manufacturing side. We've butted heads, which means you're all butting heads out there. And we want to find a way to just make it easier for everyone to do business, to just not fight once the deal is done, just to go on and print more pages. So with that, Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about Paul?
Thank you very much, Warren. So it's actually a big pleasure for me to introduce Paul to this podcast. Paul and I have actually a deep history. We have been in the trenches together. He's the North Central GCP manager for the USA, as well as the HP Indigo country manager for Canada. First of all, welcome to the show, Paul. How are you?
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Warren. Pleasure to be here. So awesome to be your very first guest on this, and looking forward to our chat today.
One of the things that the Printer in the Suit tries to get to is kind of getting an understanding of the different perspectives. And if you're selling equipment, understanding what your customers are seeing, and if you're buying equipment, what is the OEM seeing when he's talking to you? And so, Paul, let's talk a little bit about your history. I know you spent some time at Pitney Bowes and Konica Minolta Canada, and then you were at HP now for almost 6 years. Talk to me kind of through that entire, process that you've seen over the past 20 plus years in the graphic arts industry.
Well, I started my career with Pitney Bowes way back in the mid-90s, and let me tell you, if you can sell mail equipment that, looks like that, you don't know what it really does back when you're a young kid, and you can figure it out, you know that you're designed for sales. So, I had a couple of really phenomenal couple of years there going direct to the market there with 3 other reps in St. John's, Newfoundland. That's where I'm from. So believe it or not, we knocked it out of the park, doing quite well there in St. John's, competing against people, in Toronto and so forth. So it was pretty good. I transferred over to Minolta, as it was called at the time, not Konica Minolta. And so I spent another 17 years there after that. So I kind of grew up inside of that company, all the way from St. John's to Toronto, which I moved to in 2003. Started as a general manager back in St. John's, continued in the management style in Toronto, running a rather large team of 16 reps back in the early 2000s. And then as the technology changed and I got more interested in graphic arts, then I got behind the light production devices that they had, which was pretty good. We did very well with it, and Kevin, that's where you and I met. So my final career stage over at Konica Minolta was the director of industrial print, bringing some of their technologies to the market, and the one that's near and dear to your heart, which is the MGI, which I certainly had a lot of success with. But I will give you a lot of kudos right here in the call. It was you at a conference or at the Graphics Canada many years ago. Then we were talking about capital equipment, ROIs, and that was when all this kind of happened. So I kind of have you to thank for being right here.
Well, you have a beautiful story, and you really have a great background, and I've seen you blossom from selling, those light production equipment, and then saw you start, playing with those really big capital equipment, which is millions of dollars, and you adapted so quickly from one to the other, and now we're seeing how quickly you're adapting at HP. And congratulations on your success and continual rise. Tell us, how has your personal understanding of the sales process changed throughout your career as you're selling, $20,000, $30,000 machines to $1 to $2 million and plus? How has your perception of that sales cycle been altered?
When you're younger and you're new and you're getting into the industry, the only thing you really know is speeds and feeds, right? You don't have the confidence, you don't really have the experience, you haven't had your teeth kicked in enough yet, you haven't got the scars, to kind of really combat. So you're going in there with, here's who I work for, and this is what I have, and this is what it does, and I'm better than the next person, blah, 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 and then it comes down to price. So if you can get through that and eventually kind of mature through that over a period of time, you will, find a flavor or a skill or value, something that you can get across. And at the end of the day, people like to deal with people, not necessarily people with companies, okay? So it's really people buy from people. So if you have that personality, people will eventually kind of gravitate towards you. Now, once I made my way over to HP in 2017, that was a whole different ballgame, right? So this is no longer pond hockey, all right? So this was, you're at the top level here. And so for Canada, I had a lot of heavy lifting to do for the first couple of years. So it was more of seeing management decisions I had to make. So I had to kind of make some necessary changes here at the organization. And once that kind of happened, we had a nice steady flow of change happening, let's put it this way. Lots of sales, lots of diversification. The market was kind of beginning to wake up, and then the pandemic hit. And the pandemic is what actually helped morph me into what is actually happening now, which continues. And as oddly as enough, as it may sound, when there was no sales to be had and the entire pipeline and funnels were wiped out, and we're sitting around going, what are we going to do? How am I going to go and sell these multi-million-dollar solutions to companies that don't technically need anything right now because there's no more demand, it's gone. How will we reinvent ourselves? And it was Doris Brown-McNally, who you know quite well, who helped me reinvent myself. And we put our heads together and began to understand the value of what HP actually brings to the market. And it's not about selling equipment, it's about finding partners and selling partnerships. So that's actually what I do today. I don't actually try and sell equipment, that just happens to come along with it. But if you help organizations understand the value that we bring to the market, so for example, we have branding categories, we have workflow and e-commerce categories, we have business development categories, we have media paper categories. Like, these are leadership capabilities that are experts in the field. You want to have an epidemiology conversation with me, I can have that with you. Like, it doesn't make a difference what you want to talk about, I have all these experts. And as the pandemic unfolded and nobody had anything to do because all their calendars were wiped out, I was out there educating the market on all the different things we get to do. And before you know it, we were developing opportunities and never really talking about the equipment, but they knew where they wanted to go with it. And that's when you saw the market actually change. So, we had like record-breaking years, right? That Keren's never seen before we changed it, right? So there's a tremendous amount of B2, general commercial print took off, folding carton took off, flexible packaging took off, labels took off. It all took off at the exact same time. And my mantra was to try and make Canada the easiest country in the world to do business with. So I know it kind of sounds like a commercial, but that's what unfolded in a very short period of time.
Well, solid answer. Sounds like you connected all the dots that you had and understood how to leverage all the resources that you had at your disposal. Warren, let's get some feedback. Selling partnerships and selling relationships, and the machines just come with it. That's the bonus on the cake. What are your thoughts on that?
So just never mind being a print owner, being a salesperson in the world of print and having to work the other side, selling is selling. It doesn't matter if it's what the widget is, right? And Paul's 100%. It is about the relationship and it's about trust. But the problem is there are very few people selling that give you that feeling and the trust. And I'm speaking openly, print owners and print manufacturers have a tough time finding the right people that could portray that all the time. But that usually is the winning success, is when there is a relationship, because then everything is discussed as best as possible, put on the table. Yeah. When you don't have that relationship, that's when I find details are left out and there's a lot of stuff that pops up after that you maybe didn't know from before, and that's when relationships start to go really south.
Sure. So you're saying people who have good relationships with you and able to continue that relationship even after installation, that's probably the right way to go. How about you, Paul, when you're hiring new salespeople to come work for you, what are you looking for? What makes a good salesperson? Is it somebody who knows the industry really well and can have that business conversation? Or are you looking for relationship builders? Are you looking from people from the industry? What, in your opinion, is the best type of profile for a salesperson to come work for you?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot now. Yeah, because I just finished hiring somebody who just went through the process. The process was well over 6 months, right? And I threw it out there last October when I knew the changes were coming with myself, going into the new year with HP. And, I opened it up to the market, kind of walked around the market for a little bit, went to all the different events to kind of see who was out there. People knew that there was an opportunity. Just wanted to see who was going to kind of present themselves. And so I kind of went through that process. Then I stepped it up a couple of notches and put more information out there to see who I could get from the market. And I had people from printing companies, I had people from the competition, I had people who were not from the market, I had print sales people. I had them all come to me. But ultimately, I'm looking for somebody who has, you get that feeling when you kind of meet somebody for the very first time, whether whether they have what it takes or not. And trust me, sales can be one of the best jobs in the world as long as you're designed for it. And it'll be one of the worst jobs in the world if you're not. And everybody wants to be a successful salesperson, okay? Until they get into that position, and all of a sudden you get those huge quotas wrapped around your ears, and then it's tight.
Well, you find out you actually have to work.
You actually have to work pretty darn hard. So, it's kind of a relentless will to win, with high level of integrity. Okay, that is it right there, a high level of integrity. And when you got a caller on the market, when you have your eye on somebody and they're, hitting all the boxes and that, what you're looking for, and then the people confirm it in the market, you know that you're kind of sniffing around in the right area. So it's a tough decision to make sometimes when you have a couple of people that are all, relatively phenomenal. I mean, you don't know which one will be the best, but at the end of the day, your heart kind of, gets you across the line at the end of the day.
Yeah, you trust your gut, right? It's gotten you this far, so why not?
Yeah.
Very cool. Any feedback, Warren, on that? And what makes a good salesperson that came in with you? I mean, you've had a lot of experience buying stuff. Is it somebody who's built the relationships?
It's really across the board, and it could be different. You can get a good rep who's been in print that has all the things that we've been talking about and the relationships. You can never expect them to bring their book of business, though. If that's your reason for hiring them, don't hire them. As far as other people go, good reps, good personalities, good integrity. Again, it doesn't matter what the widget is, because those people generally learn whatever they need to learn quickly. But what I will tell you is if you're hiring somebody who's not in my world of print and I want to train them, I, the owner, have to be prepared to invest 18 to 24 months if I want them to be successful. Right. And I see too many people hiring, saying that, and then 6, 8, 12 months in get cold feet because they don't have the number and they start to panic and they let them go before they hit their peak.
Yeah, development is key,
right?
For sure.
So yes to all, but you got to be willing and ready to put the time in with them or they will fail.
Yeah.
Listen, you got to have a growth mindset. At the end of the day, I got a lot of calls saying, Paul, what do you think? I'm like, hey, you shouldn't be calling me and asking me to see what I think. You should know, kind of thing. Or, Paul, listen, you sold a lot of stuff out there. Is there anything left to be sold? That's a bad indicator. Those are little mistakes that probably you shouldn't be thinking or saying, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a huge market out there, right? There's only a little bit of digital out there, and there's so much happening. So.
Well, you also don't want anyone that you're talking to that the glass is almost half empty. Everyone in sales should only be positive, even if things are not good, because you know they will be.
Yeah.
Right? Because you bring the people around you down if you're a negative salesperson.
Right. Well, that's what Paul was saying, the relentless will to win. And that's, I think, a big part of that has to be being a continual optimist. If you don't have that optimistic mindset, then it's hard to keep that will going. Listen, one of the trickiest parts of sales, and there's a lot of different schools on it, is when you're sitting down with a printer and you're talking price. And so, Paul, you and I have spent probably days speaking about this part of the sale and how it's presented. There's some schools of thought that says you don't talk about price, you talk about price at the very end of the cycle. There's other that says, well, you're wasting your time if you don't, because you're going to spend 6 months going down the road and doing the demos and all that. What is your school of thought when it comes to how to discuss pricing?
Well, it's funny. I'll walk into some situations, and if price comes up right away, then obviously one of us is in the wrong room. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm selling the most expensive digital assets out there. So, what am I going to do? Discount 5%, 10%, 3%? It's not going to make any difference here. So somebody's in the wrong sales cycle here at the end of the day. You need what surprises everybody is that I just said we have the most expensive assets out there, but we're the most cost-effective solution. And so the proof is in the pudding. So we just got to go through the model, and we got to understand your business. The printers need to open up and share the data that they have so that they can analyze what needs to be offset and what needs to move to digital. Believe it or not, some people are very open to that, and some people are not open to that. So the economics are the economics at the end of the day. So everybody loves the idea of it. Right. Go through the exercises. If it's green, let's go. If it's not, then something. Now you know what to do in the future.
How about you, Warren? I mean, you've bought a lot of equipment.
I'm going to count to 3. Well, no. So really, when I say what's the price, and you say to me, well, blah, blah, we'll get to the end, I'm thinking, just answer the bloody question. I already know it's expensive. The difference is it's my money, and the people selling me, they're never on the hook for it. So if you're sitting with me, you're sitting there for a reason. I already know. When questions are not answered or it starts to do this, it starts to get me upset, because all you have to do is put out the number, and then I know to move on, and I will move on. So, right? And then you all, I'm just saying vendors.
You're buying this, but that's if you're buying that, right?
No.
How do I know what the price is if I don't know what you need? Or what kind of support you need?
It's about rough idea. It's rough idea because entrepreneurs' heads start to calculate the minute of. It's not about the interest. We know we're in for $25,000 a month. We just want to look at, build it up. The people we're buying from are not entrepreneurs. Their brains aren't thinking in terms of building business the same way. It's corporate. Then, I always find the vendors want to go in right after into, so what do you do on your machines? And then they want to do the ROIs. And I don't always agree with the way they're done, because if I own a piece of equipment and it's paid for, reality is I'm keeping more cash in the business than I am dishing it out. But that's another conversation. I just want my question, maybe because I'm maybe a little more seasoned, I want all my questions answered as we go. I know there's a sales process. I have a sales team. We teach them the same way. So vendor to print owner should know at this level, we all both know the game. Just everybody put it out there.
Wait, but honestly, I mean, all bullshit aside, how often did you walk into one of those meetings where you're going to discuss price and you didn't have like a 90 to 95% understanding of what that price was going to be anywhere, because you've talked around, you've talked to other people, you've done your research. So,
sorry, A, ish, and then B, you're not negotiating at the beginning. It's just to have in your head as you're going through everything, because you know what the truth is, if I hit a point where all of a sudden I'm doing the math and I'm adding it up and I realize, oh my God, this is really out of my league, then I'm able to say, whoa, guys, I think I made an error. This is a little too out of my league. Instead of going the distance of everyone's time and energy to find out at the end, oh my God, this is out of my league.
yeah.
I mean, everyone looks at it a little differently, but the printers know what the rough price is.
We don't want to waste time with somebody with a big mystery. Next thing, I've got 12 hours invested in something and surprise them at the end, right, with an idea. No, let me do this. We give them budgetary ideas to think up front. Now, do you want to go to the next meeting, or do you want to, basically, would you like to spend an additional 6, after what I just said to you, would you like to spend 4 to 6 hours with me, with HP, to discover what your needs are?
Right.
It's a yes or a no at that particular point.
Yeah,
Once we
cool.
get the budgetary. So I think that answers both of our questions.
I think
That's true.
I think you need more salespeople to be clones of you. And clones of me and clones of clones of me and clones of Kevin. I mean, we happen to be a little different.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I worked on over the last couple of years, especially here in Canada.
Yeah.
Greg and Steve and all. I mean, they bring a great deal of value to the market and how they approach it, and they've done a really good job. So very proud of them and how they take care of the sales cycle.
Sure. So let me ask you one question, Paul. We talk about perspective. Let's change perspective for 1 second. You are not a suit, you are a printer. What would you do different as a printer in the buying process than what you're currently seeing out there? Is there anything that you would do different with the knowledge of the other side?
Knowing what I know on the other side, if I was a printer, I would have my data and the understanding of my business readily available so I could review that with the organizations that want to assess it, so that you know what you can and cannot look at, what you need or need not to diversify into, where you need to grow or not to grow in. You need to have the data so that our types of organizations can assess that. And it's not an HP math versus somebody else's math. It's math at the end of the day, right? So you got to have the data, and it would surprise you how difficult. Listen, people are really wanting to do this. They know there's a big change happening. Like, think between now and the next couple of years, what's about to happen? And, they just can't get me the data. I'm like, why not? Right? Well, a lot of people bought the vanilla version of the MIS systems that they bought years ago, and they just can't get that data out, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a static form to a certain degree. So then they got to buy the additional hacks, as we'll call it, or whatever. So there's a bunch of other things that need to happen, but they need to get access to the data of their business so they can assess their needs properly.
So quantifiable selling, going in there with numbers, understanding what the numbers are saying and what are showing. How about you, Warren? Let's change your perspective. If you're out there selling...
No, hang on. I just want to address there. You've got there's always that top 10% of great printers who do it right, have all access to everything. And it's exactly what you said, Paul. A lot of printers I talk to don't even know what data is still. Yeah. Right? In terms of collecting it. And I think the bigger part of our industry might be a lot of those people who are just a little behind, and they need some help from whoever it is to step it up. Because most people that I talk to that are ready to take a jump in equipment have waited so long, they've missed out a layer of movement advancing. Yeah. Right? So anyway, that's that. Sorry, you were asking me my perspective.
So imagine you're out there selling indigos. What would you do different knowing your side of things? Like you are being commissioned and you're being compensated based on how many indigos you're going to sell, Warren. What would you do different knowing that what you know from being a printer for all those years?
Well, just from selling it, it's going in, it's the relationship, it's asking the right questions, letting them answer, listening to them answer, because we as salespeople sometimes don't do that. And then it would be really just taking it step by step, letting them know I'm not interested in just selling the machine, it's for long term.
Yeah.
There are too many salespeople out there that'll sell the wrong machine to the wrong person or the person that doesn't need it, right? And I think that's where a lot of grumblings come. But I think honesty and truthfulness is really, the first and foremost important. Quality, everybody's pretty good. Like the ones that are remaining, I'm not too worried about that. But it's really the working relationship.
Sure. Last question before we go. Paul, what is the responsibility of the printer and what is the responsibility of the OEM in a sales process?
Responsibility of the printer, responsibility of the OEM.
People are thinking when they say the question again out loud.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy we did this off the cuff, right? There was no preparing for it because I would have
Right.
But
that's too easy.
And
by the way, we're going to ask every person on this show those questions.
It's really, something. I have this model, and that is every single interaction I have with anybody, whether I'm talking on the phone, whether I'm talking to you, whether I'm talking to a partner or a colleague, whatever it is, I try to give them value. And whatever that is, I don't know, but I will research them. I will understand them. I will show up to the party, and they will know that I've put a lot of effort into the brief encounter that we are about to have. So I will say that. Research so that they know how much time you put into that so that you can get the reciprocal feeling that you're looking for when you communicate with them. The other is, you got to show up with a great deal of integrity. You got to show up with, stop thinking you're right, you know what I mean? Go in there with an open mindset, delivering the value that you have as an organization and as a part of what you bring to the table. You don't need to knock down anybody else. You don't need to badmouth anybody out there. You don't need to play the games that actually have it. Because I just walk away from those or just quickly swim away from those and just park ourselves in a different lane. Because again, as I say, if I'm in certain sales cycles, one of us is in the wrong one, right? And that's it there. From a printer perspective, I think they also need to show up much more open-minded because things are changing so fast that if they don't keep their eye on the ball right now, there's going to be some trouble. So, for example, there's a lot of business in the cloud right now. And so just before our call here, I even had a call from the aggregator, and they're looking to offload lots of business in North America, here in Toronto, Vancouver, Chicago, New York, LA, all over the place. And here I am, I'm kind of pushing all over the place. And some of the expectations that they need to do is like up to 5,000 boxes a day, or it could be photo books or whatever it is. And so global businesses that are aggregating a lot of work and need to be able to have the right type of print service providers that can do this stuff on demand, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not going to give you 6 months to schedule this stuff out, right? It's going to be coming. You got to have a workflow. You got to be able to feed it straight into your business. So you got to have a workflow that works. You got to be able to ingest digital work, completely automated, be able to go right through your entire organization to the press without a single person touching it. That's how much automation you need to have. But some people are open to that idea, others are not, probably because they're scared. Sometimes they just, if I just look away for a little longer, maybe this won't happen, but it's happening.
But they're not for every printer because it's cutthroat killer. And if you're late getting their order out, they take half of the, there's a lot of, little rules and regulations in there and fines and penalties. But it would take a really smart, aggressive printer who is not in their vocabulary.
Yeah.
Right?
Or is well equipped to be able to do it. If they have the right tech to be able to run it from A to Z.
You know what? More than equipment, it's mindset.
Right.
Right? Because it's a process and a procedure. And they're not about print, they're about producing.
Sure.
So it's pretty cool.
Alrighty. Listen, I think we are out of time. Warren, is there anything else that you would like to add before we sign off?
No, I'd just like to say thank you. Good back and forth, and what a great way to start. And I'm hoping just going on that other people want to join us, even other people from HP if they have some great input. For us, it's really just want to bring everyone together. And this is the best industry in the world, and that's all I could say.
Right. Amen. Thanks again, Paul. It's been a pleasure having you on the printer and the suit. We wish you a lot of success with all the cool things that you guys are doing as a company and all the great things that you personally are doing, not just for the industry, but for all the associations, whether it's Pat Global or DIA or all the other things, you've really been able to really use those to really good advantage. I wanted to thank you very much, my friend, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Warren. Until the next
Pleasure.
time. See you at D-Scoop.
See you at D-Scoop.
See you at D-Scoop.